Hey everybody, welcome to your horoscopes for the week. These are the horoscopes for the week ending June 17th. Big challenge has become a little bit smaller this week, which I'm really happy about, to be honest, with you, especially since I'm in the middle of the challenge. So having it a little bit lighter does definitely help everybody's situation, I'm sure. We got some kind of fun stuff going on too as well. So let's just go ahead and hop right on into Aries like we always do. And we are kicking off the week with the moon in your sign, which is actually starts off to be a really good thing, actually, especially as the moon moves into a grand sextile with Mercury as well as Mars. Venus does play into that just a little bit. And because of the moon's conjunction with Neptune, even though Neptune is in Pisces, does bring an element that Neptune's element of magic into play as well. With focus right in the middle of relationships and finances, specifically your relationship with your finances, Mercury's focus is on long-term goals. Good job looking at your long-term financial goals. And Mars still is influencing our inner trauma. Really, honestly, this is one of those epic moments for you guys where you can really just break free of old money mindsets, be a little bit more open to some new ideas in terms of, financial success and financial freedom. There's a lot of really good energy specifically going into that. My advice is to harness that as much as you possibly can. And I'm also being told to tell you, you guys, that it's really good to research multiple different options rather than taking the first one that seems good right off the bat. The more you research multiple options, actually, the more doors may be opening up for you, if that makes sense. The moon continues to be in your sign moving into Monday, not quite in as a spectacular influence, unfortunately, but still influencing very well none the same, because focus does continue to be finances, and that trine with Mars also continues. So I kind of visualize this as you guys going out and doing the research, getting really excited, and then that little fear voice comes in and says, but what if that doesn't work? But what if I lose all my money? But what if, but what if, but what if, but what if, right? Honestly, I think we're all programmed to be that way. It's very easy to program us to be that way because it lives inside of us in some way, shape, or form. So bottom line here is that you don't want to listen to that voice, honestly. And this is an opportunity for you to reprogram that voice and make it speak to you in a way that's a little bit more helpful to you. But really not focusing on your fear and focusing on what your gut says. Which one of these avenues feels like the best way to progress right now? It's not that the other ones aren't important or that they're not going to work, but timing is everything. Your intuition is going to be your best guide in this decision. But of course, you want to do your research and make the right decision as well. As the moon sort of moves out of your sign by Tuesday, things do calm down a little bit. Focus does continue to be on your finances. So with a really good start in the beginning in terms of where you want to focus that energy on, it just sort of takes you through the rest of the week in a very positive way. And so if you're feeling good, you have the right to celebrate just a little bit, because you guys have done a really good job. And of course, you should, if you are feeling good, do everything in your power to keep feeling good, because that's really what life is all about, isn't it? So that's what I have for you guys this week. We are moving into Taurus as the moon also moves into Taurus this week on Tuesday, moving into conjunction right away, right off the bat with Jupiter, and joining Jupiter's T-square with Venus as well as Pluto. So this is annoying, but I do have good news, which is good. This is annoying, unfortunately, because we already have this challenge with Pluto's focus on long-term financial goals. We have Venus's focus on those that are supportive to you. Pluto continues to be focused on those that you love or those that you support. So again, we have that imbalance there. The people that should be supporting you really aren't for whatever reason. And I do feel that a lot of this is coming up around your guys, specifically professionally. It may be coming up personally, but professionally, I feel like there's a bit of a stronger pull in this direction in terms of where this energy is influencing this week specifically. When we have the moon only on Tuesday, thankfully, but when we have the moon adding an emotional layer to this, especially if it is professionally, that just makes things a heck of a lot more difficult. But I also look at it this way. It is our nature to react to something that emotionally triggers us in some way, shape, or form. And that those could be old triggers coming up from old stuff, but it could also be, just that somebody said something that you don't like, and that you don't like it or you don't agree with it is a trigger. In this instance, when you bring the moon into this boosts up the possibility of a trigger. And that's really what you want to be aware of and what you want to avoid. When we allow our triggers to react, it becomes a great big giant mess. We all know that. Instead of focusing on the problem, which is this person is not supporting you like they should be, focus on a solution or a back door or a way around this person. Because the truth is that when it comes to success, these little things come in to distract us, and it really is these distractions that kill our progress in terms of success. So just do be aware of that. The moon continues to influence this into Wednesday, as she, of course, continues to move through your sign, ending on Thursday. And as she actually leaves your sign, this is a very interesting flip, or a very interesting change in the whole situation. We still have that big challenge, obviously not influenced by the moon anymore. However, the moon's trine with Pluto, remember, Pluto's part of the challenge. The moon's trine with Pluto, actually, it's almost like I would visualize somebody that you don't even realize or would think that would come and influence something like this, just coming in and dropping this bomb of a fantastic idea. And specifically this bomb of a fantastic idea for something that has to do with your future goals, whether they are already established or this idea may just establish a new one. So it completely moves your focus away from the challenge and onto something really new and exciting. So thank you, moon. Yes, you totally screwed us in the beginning, but you helped us out in the end. So that's kind of cool, huh? And then the moon leaves by Friday, and the T-square becomes a couple of squares with planets. So it's not quite as major of a challenge. It's still there and it's not going anywhere, but it's not quite as big of a deal, if that makes sense. So we continue to be squared with Venus as well as Pluto, but those two planets are not in opposition with each other anymore. So it does make the challenge just a little bit easier to deal with, not quite as big, if that makes sense, and not quite as heavy, and maybe even not quite as getting in your way as it was. So it is an improvement, and we'll be grateful for our improvements, even if they're not exactly what we were looking for. Okay, we'll just put it that way. So that is what I have for you guys this week. Oh, and if you love your horoscopes, please do consider sending me a copy, clicking the link below in the description. I would really appreciate it. And we are going to move on to Gemini because, well, things are happening in Gemini. This is actually the last full week of the sun being in Gemini. And then we're moving into Cancer season already next week. That's just crazy. Oh my gosh. We also have Mercury moving into Gemini this week, and we have the moon rounding up the week, ending the week in Gemini as well, which most people would think, especially other intellectuals like yourselves and like myself, the moon is just really, it just really gets in the way, all this emotional stuff. I'm a problem solver. I need to solve the problem. The emotion really gums up the works there, but it also gums up the works when you hold it in and don't deal with it too. So I look at it as the moon coming in gives us opportunities to kind of just let go of some stuff, yeah, it's unpleasant and uncomfortable, but we get rid of it, and then we kind of move on from it because it's no longer sitting there anymore. It's kind of like cleaning something, your washing machine out. Most people don't think about cleaning their washing machine, but you need to clean your washing machine, because if you don't, then gunk gets stuck in there and then it doesn't work very well, right? Well, we human beings are just like washing machines, put it that way. Friday, the moon moves into conjunction with Mercury, perfect conjunction with Mercury. And by Saturday, we are full on in a new moon as the moon moves into conjunction with the sun. So basically, anything that these two planets are doing, the moon is definitely going to amplify that a little bit. On Friday, the moon joins Mercury's square with Saturn. Now, Saturn is focused on your day-to-day schedule. Mercury and the moon are focused on your long-term goals. You got responsibilities to your everyday schedule. You really have some brilliant ideas, and you really want to just spend time on the brilliant ideas that just came into your head on your goals. Typical Gemini nightmare, right? I have responsibilities when I'd rather play, because honestly, anything new that a Gemini is building is considered playing, right? And then you add the moon to it, and now you're really getting triggered by this. Okay, first of all, I look at this as an intellectual's curse. It's not even a Gemini's curse, it's an intellectual's curse. We have this habit of going, oh, and we just want to do it, okay, for two reasons. One, because if we don't, we're going to forget. Okay, we're going to move on to something else and we're going to forget. I get it. Two, because it's exciting, and what you're doing today that you had on your schedule is not very exciting, but you have responsibilities and you have to take care of them. My advice: see what you can do to add a little bit of both into your schedule today, just to appease the idea gods as well as your responsibilities. It does not have to be a big deal unless you want to make it a big deal. That's where that comes from. In terms of how things sort of move and progress the very next day, as the moon is moving into a new moon status, she also joins the sun's sextiles with Venus and Mars. So these are very good aspects, actually. They're very helpful aspects rather than the challenge that we had the day before. We're opening up to new ideas and possibilities. Now, part of that is Mars, which is right on the surface, right on the cusp now of that trigger house. Okay. I think we might be finally moving out of that. I can't even believe it. I can't believe that it's been going on as long as it has. It's absolutely crazy to me, but obviously it needed to happen, right? And Venus, which continues to be focused on those that support you. So as the moon and the sun are focused on your career and your legacy and all of your beautiful plans from here on out of how you're going to be awesome out there in the world, Venus and Mars bring that sort of logical, creative balance into these career plans. And so it sort of stabilizes things for you a little bit, which is really convenient because, intellectuals, Gemini specifically, but intellectuals in general, are like in 25 different places at once, if not more, in their brains. So having that, slowing it down and stabilizing it a little bit brings a sort of creative element into your ideas. So it's a melding of energies rather than all this chaotic mess going on in there, which is really, really helpful. So put that creativity towards your career goals. Any changes that you are thinking of making right now, make sure you get a little creative there, because that's where the fun stuff really starts to happen. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we are going to move on to Cancer. We have no planets in Cancer until next week, because next week is Cancer season, which is absolutely blowing my mind right now. Oh my God. They said every year I get older, I would swear that the time was going by faster, and they were not lying. It is totally happening right now. It's crazy. We are focused on those that support you this week as well. And so, with no planets to influence that, we do just have the Lilith or dark moon that is continuing to influence Cancer, at least at the beginning of the week. She does move on to Leo, but she moves very erratically back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's, it can feel a little chaotic sometimes. I get it. That energy is going to leave towards the end of the week. And so it'll seem like you can kind of take a breath, right? Because things are about to happen. So you need the rest, right? Before the party begins. While her influence is in your sign, however, it is direct. She's no longer retrograde. She is direct. So that massive feeling, that panicky feeling like you have to change something, is definitely present, at least towards the beginning of the week. And when we're talking specifically about your support system, I sort of visualize this occurrence happening when somebody that is normally very supportive of you, you have a conversation with them and it just doesn't go well. And there's a bazillion reasons why it may not go well. And so, but your automatic emotional panic is, I can't rely on this person anymore. That's it. That's it. Right now, sometimes we human beings do have a tendency to get a little crazy, maybe overreact a little bit. So you do want to make sure that that's not the case. Go through your emotions, roll through your anger, work through your anger, come out on the other side and decide whether or not this person is really not being supportive, or maybe you're just overreacting just a little bit. Okay, we all do it. Not accusing or anything like that. We all do it. It's not just a Cancer thing. I think the reason behind the overreaction in terms of what makes it a Cancer thing is insecurity. When somebody that, first of all, the people that you feel are supportive to you, there's very few and far between, not because they don't love you, okay, but because you are extremely picky about your support circle. There's only a few people that have really earned the privilege. So when one of those people is all of a sudden just like, I can't deal with you right now for whatever reason or whatever, or at least it feels like they're saying I can't deal with you right now, it hurts. And you go into this panic of, I only have like a couple of people I can rely on, and now I'm about to lose one. What am I going to do? You need to pay attention to what is valid emotion and what is self-created emotion. And those are actually two completely different things. The actual emotion is how you feel in the moment. And then the self-inflicted emotion is where you take that feeling. And it's where you take that feeling that can get blown out of proportion. So being mindful of that, especially at the beginning of the week, is definitely going to be helpful to you. And when you do understand that, it opens up so many doors for you. It's like you go from feeling like you're emotional every single day to not. maybe you're emotional once a week. Maybe you're emotional once a month. Maybe you're emotional. Maybe 1 week, all of a sudden you're emotional for 5 days, but the next day you're not emotional, or the next week you're not emotional at all. It's okay. It's okay to be emotional, but we want to make sure that we're maintaining that we're not self-destructive emotional. That is really important. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below and send me a coffee. I would love that. We are going to move on to Leo. We have Venus in Leo. We have Mars in Leo. We are continuing to be in a T-square with Jupiter and Pluto this week as well. Specifically, Venus is involved in this, but not all week. Luckily, Venus moves out of that opposition with Pluto, and so we're down to just a square with Jupiter, which is a little bit better, okay? But we're not going to just slide on out of this like we haven't been dealing with it all this time and just pretend that, we can somehow slide underneath its radar. No, because we're going to kick off the week with the moon in conjunction with Jupiter for 2 days. Sunday and Monday, the moon comes in to influence this pretty big challenge. Now, Jupiter and the moon's influence is on long-term financial goals specifically. We still have Mars influencing inner trauma, barely. I think we're finally moving out of that. Thank goodness for that. It has been a long one, like seriously. Venus is also continuing to focus on your support system, while Pluto is in opposition of that, focus on those that you support, if that makes sense, or those that you love. So there's a couple of things here I feel are coming up for you guys. One is that let's just dump all the rest of those triggers, okay? Because we only have another week or so, and then we can stop constantly focusing on triggers, okay? It is exhausting. I totally get it. I have talked to a few Leos in the past few weeks as this has been going on. It really has been hitting you guys hard, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm in there with you as your opposition. I'm in there with you, trust me. So yes, there is going to be some residual angers and things coming up. The lack of support issue, definitely a problem. Now, Leos are the type of people who would do anything for the people that they love, really. Now, I have known some Leos that actually won't do a damn thing for anybody, but most of the Leos that I know are almost, they sacrifice their time almost to a fault for other people. So when they're not supported, that really hurts because, I mean, obviously they put a lot of energy into you and really get offended when they don't see that reciprocated. Makes total sense. But also, it is kind of a bruise to the Leo ego because we cannot sit back and not talk about the ego of a Leo, okay? I mean, you guys are associated with that word. However, we're not just talking about like an arrogant ego here. A bruised ego is painful. It means you don't matter. It means that it doesn't matter how hard you try, people don't love you or people don't accept you, and you put so much energy into being those things for people to like. It is just a nightmare. Let me just clue you in on this right now. If you get out of your head and in that crazy space that I just described, it will be so much easier for you, because really this is all a lesson about whether or not your self-worth is based on what other people think or what you think. And really your self-worth should be based on what you think. And when you realize how important that is, you stop expending so much energy on everybody else, not because you're more important than everybody else, but because you're important enough not to waste your time when you don't need to. So honestly, this is a big deal for you guys. And yes, it's a hard lesson. It's a hard lesson for everybody, not just Leos. Okay. This is a hard lesson for everybody. But I have learned this lesson along the way and continue to learn this lesson along the way. And let me just tell you how much I love the fact that I don't have to try so hard. Think about that for just a minute. You don't have to try so hard. Think of how much energy you're going to have. Think of how much time is about to open up for you. Think about all the other things that you can create with your mind, because it now has room to do that because it's not taken up by constant worry. I'm telling you, you are going to thank me for this. Okay, you are going to thank me for this eventually. Okay, maybe not this week, but eventually you will thank me for this. Also, the good news is that as we move into the end of the week, Venus moves out of that opposition with Pluto. So, yes, intense really at the beginning of the week, but as we move through the week, the intensity goes down a little bit. We still have that bit of an issue with Pluto there. And really, when it comes to support in terms of your financial goals, you also want to be aware that you are not looking for somebody to make your decision, but you are looking for support. If you're looking for someone to make your financial decision for you, that might be difficult for you to find. So make sure you're looking for the right support. Okay. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below and send me a coffee. I would love it. And we are moving on to Virgo, still all about you. It's still focused on you this week. And we still have Ceres in Virgo for the rest of the week, literally 29 degrees by the end of the week. So she's like hovering, right? She's hovering on the cusp of Libra, thinking about moving over there next week, you know, kind of testing the waters, what have you. And Ceres is known as the Great Mother. So, of course, we have talked a lot about her nurturing maternal nature and influence towards yourself, which we have been talking about for the last couple of weeks also. I want to say, though, this week, so we have no planets coming in to influence Virgo, which is nice. You guys don't like to be influenced anyways, do you? Although I have heard that you're easily influenced, but, you know, I mean, I just heard it from, you know, that guy that doesn't know what he's talking about at the time, right? You know, that guy. This week I feel is really important for you guys to focus not on yourselves health-wise, not necessarily on yourselves financial-wise, but actually I am feeling that this week is all about focusing on yourself in terms of who you are now and where you want to be. And Virgos are planners. You guys love to plan, and most Virgos are planning for the future, but you're planning what you want to do, continue to do for a career in the future. You're planning finances. You're planning what you think you want your life to look like in the future. What about you? Who do you want to be in the future? This is a very interesting concept and a very interesting idea that, of course, would only come up around Virgos, really, when you think about it. In fact, I've never had this thought in my entire life, and it's plunked into my head, and I'm like, what an interesting concept. Who do I want to be 20 years from now? Right? And we're talking personality. We're talking, what influences that personality. We're talking about the kind of person that you want to be in the future? Do you want to open up and be kinder to animals? Or do you want to maybe be a little less sociable because, let's face it, people are crazy, or maybe you want to in the future have more of a balance between being sociable and having time to yourself. Interesting concept for you guys to ponder this week. I also feel like it's really important to remember that the past you does influence the future you. But as you're sitting down and thinking about this theory, you also have a chance to decide just how much the past you is going to influence the future you and in what way, if that makes sense. Do you want it to be in a healthy way, a productive way, a successful way? The sky really is the limit in terms of what you can create around who the future you is going to be. And it also opens you up to be able to see what it is that you need to do to get to that point. So yeah, I think that's actually going to be a lot of fun for you guys, because it's just something that I don't know why we don't, it doesn't occur to us to do it. We just don't. So why don't you guys do that and let me know how it goes, okay? And that is what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do click the link below and send me a copy. I would absolutely love it. And we are moving on to Libra. Focuses on the past this week. And I feel like for you guys this week, a lot of times the past comes back to haunt us, if that makes sense. And there are various different levels of how that happens. So I'm not saying that one mistake that you made that was horrific that one time is going to come back and resurface this week. I mean, from one, maybe two people, possibly, but no, that's actually not where I'm going with this. I feel like this is more that has to do with the past pulling you backwards, if that makes sense at all. And if it doesn't, let me explain in the best way that I can. A lot of times who we were sneaks up into who we are now. Now, if I'm to use myself as an example, as a kid, I was very tough. I'm not going to sit here and go on about, being somebody that went and beat people up all the time, because I didn't do that. But as a personality wise, I was very tough. I did not deal with anybody's BS, right? If I thought it was BS, I was not dealing with it, moving on. And I did stand up for myself for the most part. But I also played the little girl, and this man is going to save me kind of a thing, because I unfortunately was one of those girls that was raised with women need men to save her. Okay, so I was it immature and stupid? Absolutely, it was immature and stupid, but that's just what I knew at the time. And as I got older, I did have actually find a really good man, so that actually probably helped with that. But I learned to stand more and more on my own 2 feet and become more and more and more independent as much as I could. And then it went to, I don't need a man. I have one, I love him, I want one, but I don't have to need one. I can say what I need to say without anybody's help, kind of a thing. And then as I've gotten even older, I'm starting to revert back to this sort of fear of not being able to move forward without a man next to me, specifically mine, of course, not just any. It's all been the same man throughout the whole process. We've had the whole same man. So that does make things a little bit easier. The point is that I'm struggling with going backwards. And yet part of my mindset is because I'm getting older and I don't have the same kind of energy that I used to. And I don't have the oomph to stand up and get nose to nose and get in somebody's face if I have to. I really don't want to do that anymore. So I struggle with the concept of the only thing that I know, which is if I can't take care of myself, I need somebody to take care of me, kind of a thing. We all seem to have these weird notions that were planted in there somewhere that seem to be continuing to control us, even if they're not playing out right in front of us in black and white, if that makes sense. And I feel like this week the roots or these things may be coming up a lot more in order for you to take the time to identify where that comes from. Now, for me, in the situation that I just was talking about, this comes from actually it comes from having two very influential men in my very young years, my childhood years. One that was horrible and one that was wonderful. And so you can see why it's difficult and why I tend to go back and forth and back and forth, because generally I get really independent when I'm triggered and I'm avoiding the bad. But when I'm needy, it's because, oh my gosh, you're so wonderful. So really, it's my own mood that's influencing the whole thing. Oh my God, seriously, my brain just exploded. That's how you do it, people. That's how, that is exactly how you do that. And the more you understand where that comes from, and it could be just as little as that, the more you understand where it comes from, the easier it is for you to decide whether or not you're going to keep that pattern going, right? The pattern only goes until you realize it's there, and then you get to choose whether or not it stays or goes. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscope, do click the link below and send me a coffee. I would love that. We're going to move on to Scorpio. Scorpio is all in their heads this week. Focus is on the mind and how the mind works. But I also see some ideas, some big ideas coming up in those brilliant minds of you guys. What do I love about Scorpios the most, what I love about Scorpios the most is the fact that for a water sign, and I'm not saying water signs are dumb, okay? Not saying that at all. I would never say that, right? But there's some emotional brilliance going on in there for you guys. I just have to say, it's like you guys know what to do with your feelings, how to use your feelings to your best advantage, how to use your feelings to be successful. And yet you're highly intelligent. Maybe don't go around showing it in some cases, but highly, highly intelligent. Those that hide their intelligence are usually my favorite ones, really, because one, most of the time I can tell when you're doing it. But two, people only see on the surface. They only literally, I've heard this saying since I was a kid, most people only see past the end of their nose. And those individuals that are highly intelligent but don't necessarily lead with that are usually a surprise in the end. And I really do enjoy that surprise. This week, though, there's a couple of things that come up with all of those busy ideas you guys got going on. First things first. First things first, coffee. First things first. One of the things that I'm being shown, you got a lot of ideas. Always going to write them down, just so you don't forget them. And that also eliminates the fear of forgetting them. The other thing that is coming up for me, for you guys this week, is there really seems to be something in particular that you guys are going to face this week that actually does require a lot of intellectual thinking, if that makes sense. So this is like certifications or testing or surprise. You have to take this test with the board of whatever, who knows what it is, but it just feels like there's a lot of brain power going into this specific situation. A couple of things with some advice around that. First of all, take breaks. I'm not going to say it's not that you guys aren't used to using your brains. Of course you are. But anybody who has to use that much brain power, it gets, your brain just starts to get tired and everything gets muddled, and then you start to get confused. When you take a break and walk away from it for a minute, you can refocus again. And it is like magic. So whenever you start, don't get frustrated, walk away, take a break for a minute, think about something else. It'll seep back in and go, oh, I know exactly how to fix that. And then you can move on to the next thing. The other thing is, don't get overwhelmed. What happens in here is that you think of, oh my God, all the things that need to be done, and then you get overwhelmed and you can't focus also. So again, make sure that you're coming into it with a clear mind, a focused mind that's just working on one thing at a time until you get it done, if that makes sense. And that helps you to get through the intellectual challenge a little bit easier. It's still a challenge, but you're not adding to what's making it a challenge, if that makes sense. And your brain is like totally wired to do that. So you have to be like ahead of it, right? No, you're not going to do this. Okay, brain, we're going to do this a different way this time. That's how you want to approach that. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below and send me a copy. I would greatly appreciate it. We are moving on to Sagittarius, where focus continues to be on home this week. And part of that I'm being shown is changes, moving things around, maybe even getting rid of something in order to open up room for something new, if that makes sense, which is always kind of fun. And that something new doesn't, of course, always have to be like, you went and purchased something at a store. That something new, can oftentimes be something that is being passed on from one person to another, kind of a thing as well. So I do see actually an element of that. I think there's a reason why that came up, because I do see sort of an element of that. And specifically, you guys being able to use your creativity in this, if that makes sense, and turning it into something that is completely different than what it was before. This is where your craftiness comes in and your creativity comes in, and your incredibly fantastic brain full of ideas comes in as well. I also feel that this is not just something to do because you need something to do. I feel like this actual creativity is opening up something in you guys, something that might have been dormant for a while if you haven't been doing this. Because two things are really important about being creative for Sagittarians. And that's one, it puts the energy in a creative place, which is what Sagittarius needs. The term, I can't think of the term, never mind. Probably because I don't want to say it. But in any case, boredom is bad for Sagittarius. Okay. That's when they start getting crazy thoughts and want to do something drastic, and 9 times out of 10 regret it, right? So actually, this sort of creative work helps with that. It puts the energy in a productive place because you've established from the beginning that this is a productive place, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that it also gives you the ability to expand on what you're doing right now. So things get stagnant. You start doing the same thing every single day, and or you're running your business in the exact same way, or you're taking care of your house in the exact same way. Sagittarians are not habit people. Okay, they don't like routine. I mean, they do, because it does get it done. It keeps them on track, so it can help you remember. But it gets so boring after a while. It's like, oh my God, and then you start to think about running away. You start to think about, just filling up balloons with water and throwing them all over the house. I mean, you start to think about crazy things, right? To snap out of this craziness. This also helps with that, because you're putting all of that energy into a different outlet. You're giving yourself something to focus on that is fun and exciting, and it doesn't seem like a chore. So whatever that is, it's up to you guys to find that. And that project that sort of gives you that satisfaction without doing anything too crazy. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below in the description and send me a copy. I would appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and move on to Capricorn. Focus is on those you love this week. We still have Pluto 29 degrees in Capricorn. So we are officially back in Capricorn. I know you had so much time to miss him, really. So couple of things here. First of all, Pluto continues to be in a T-square with Jupiter and Venus this week. At the very beginning of the week, the moon's conjunction with Jupiter adds that emotional layer to this challenge. Pluto's focus is on those you love. Venus's focus is on those that love you or those that support you. Jupiter's focus, along with the moon on Sunday and Monday, is focused on your financial goals. So this is actually, my mind's kind of blown here. Okay. I don't think of Capricorns as needing other people to help them with their financial goals. Usually I visualize Capricorns not needing any other person because they know best about how to handle their money. Capricorns are usually pretty good with money. It's what you're known for, right? So I'm going to go out on a limb and go in an opposite direction here on this one. I feel that this week, what this challenge is really bringing up for you guys is somebody trying to infiltrate your future financial goals, if that makes sense. Whether that's a spouse or a child or a parent or somebody. And that could even play out as somebody needing to borrow money that you have, but just don't want to part with, kind of a thing. Or having already done that and them not paying it back, if that makes sense. So difficulties with money, never a good thing with Capricorn. What is good is the moon. When the moon makes this emotional, so we're literally kicking off the week like that. Sunday, Monday, this is like a full-on blow up. By Friday, Pluto moves out of opposition with Venus. So we are just now sitting at a square with Jupiter, which we're going to be in for probably a little bit longer, honestly. But this is it. It's the challenge is a lot more minimal now that it's kind of shrunk down a little bit. So might be a little bit easier to deal with. Still not pleasant, but at least a little bit easier to deal with. That square with Jupiter now looks more like you have financial goals, but you also have responsibilities to other people. And it's those responsibilities to other people that are impeding on your financial goals. To me, this is just reorganizing how much money is going where, so that you may not actually be putting away as much money as you'd like to be, but that doesn't mean that you can't put anything away either. It's all about just changing things to make sure that everything fits correctly. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And we're moving on to Aquarius. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule. Pluto finally moves back into Capricorn, although 29 degrees, still on the cusp. So you guys are not getting away from him, unfortunately. In fact, I don't think he's going to move backwards enough to not be on the cusp of Aquarius. But it is 6 months, so you never know. We might get a little tiny bit of a break from that. First of all, Pluto continues to be in that T-square with Jupiter and Venus. Pluto's focus is on those you love. Venus's focus is on those that love and support you. Jupiter's focus is on your financial goals. And the moon, in conjunction with Pluto, kicks the whole week off. So we are literally looking at the first 2 days of the week being an emotional challenge to boot. So we're looking at our financial goals. Our loved ones are getting in the way of that. Obviously, the moon being involved means it's pissing us off. I mean, come on, right? Actually, I can totally relate to this because it just feels like my whole life right now. Really? So great. That's what we're dealing with next week too, guys. Okay. Awesome. Right? You know, one of the things that I have learned in this financial fiasco that I have been through in this year specifically is that I tend to rely more on others to solve a problem that I really need to find a resolution to myself. And I feel like this really is the lesson. And the moon moving into that overly emotional place is when the really big stuff is happening that creates these really deep triggers for me that I have to work through and realize that I have to let go of what other people are doing. It's as simple as that. This is not about what other people are doing. This is about what I'm doing. And I can only focus on me, and I can only control me, and I can only do what needs to be done for me, period. Expecting anybody else to do it. I'm a strong, independent woman, right? So it comes down to not focusing on what other people are doing and focusing on what am I doing to fix my problem. So that's one thing I feel that plays out of this. The good news is that by Friday, Pluto moves out of opposition with Venus. So this T-square, this big challenge that does continue on for the whole week up until Friday, becomes a much smaller challenge. We're still focused on those we love in terms of Pluto's position. And we're still focused on long-term financial goals and growing those goals in terms of Jupiter's position. But now we're looking more at how are we using our loved ones as an excuse to not take care of this very important responsibility. I feel like the planets are speaking to me right now. Seriously. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. There are so many people out there that are just like, oh my God, I'd have so much money if things weren't so expensive. Inflation, the government, blah, 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 blah. Stop making excuses as to why you don't have money. Figure out why you are not making the money that you need to be making and fix it, period. That's all we have to do. And the more we complain about everything else that's going on in the world, the more we're just sitting here not doing a flipping thing about it. And that's just not going to work. So that is what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, then do send me a copy. Click the link below in the description and send me a copy. I would really love it. I always can use coffee, fueled by coffee. And finally, moving on to Pisces, we continue to have Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn is going retrograde this week. As a matter of fact, We're looking at Saturday at the end of the week, actually. We still have Neptune also in Pisces, and Neptune is going retrograde pretty soon too, by the end of the month, for sure. Neptune is going retrograde, so no, Neptune is not leaving Pisces anytime soon. I really didn't think it was, to be honest with you. So we got a couple of things here. Let's start with Saturn focused on relationships, specifically looking at what is your responsibility to your relationships. That's an interesting question, actually. Saturn is squared with the sun and the moon. The last day of the week, the moon is involved in that square. And we're specifically talking about how your relationships could be focused or could be in the way of your career progression, or we're talking specifically about relationships around your career that you might be having some difficulty with. And the moon coming into that is definitely going to project that big time. Now, couple of different things. Okay, one, it's unfair, it's true, but everybody portrays Pisces as the one who's crying all the time. It is unfair. I know a lot of Pisces. Few of them cry all the time, yes, but I do know a lot of Pisces. It's not just who you guys are, okay? However, in this situation, if you're heavily triggered and you do react emotionally in any capacity to the situation, especially around work, that's just not a good idea. So being prepared, number one, is good, and being aware. I look at it this way. Anytime I have an interaction where I could be triggered in some way, and there's like a million instances that happens every single day, right? I have a choice, okay? My automatic reaction is always sarcastic or angry and attack or something that's not good, okay? It's always my first initial reaction, all right? We want to avoid our first initial reaction being that, first of all. Second of all, or I stop my reaction and I take a couple steps back, which is usually a good deep breath and then blow it out and then decide whether I'm going to go the diplomatic route or I'm going to go the emotional route, right? In that breath, I make that decision and then go from there. When we're talking about around your career, an emotional reaction 9 times out of 10 is not a good idea. There is that 1% in there, okay, where it is necessary, but most of the time it's not. And I'm not talking about crying either. I'm talking about getting angry. I'm talking about getting sulky, sarcastic, any of those things. They're not going to look good for you in terms of business, at least 9 out of 10 times. Okay, there's always that little gray area there. Neptune, on the other hand, is also in a square with the sun, which is oddly interesting, right? So Neptune is all about your relationships, and the sun continues to be in your career. So we're talking about relationships. We're talking about your responsibilities of what you're supposed to be doing on a day-to-day basis. And as we get to the very end of the week, when Saturn goes retrograde, we're also looking at what kind of responsibilities are you taking on a day-to-day basis? Are they all yours? Are you taking on more responsibility than is necessary? Are you taking on the responsibilities of others and shouldn't be? As a mom, as a working mom, as a mom who's not home very often to adult children, and I just, oh, it's okay, I will go ahead. I don't do a lot of my kids' laundry, okay, but I'll just go ahead and do your laundry. It's no big deal. And then it gets to the point where this kid never learns how to do his laundry, right? So it's not good for him that he doesn't know how to do his laundry, obviously, right? And in the long run, that's not good for him. Well, it's not good for me either. Why should I spend an extra hour and a half of my life doing laundry that isn't mine? I mean, I got enough stuff to do, right? You've got to look at it from both sides and make sure that you're not trying to be nice, taking on somebody else's crap. Okay. You got enough stuff going on. You don't need to do that. So it's sort of a very interesting balance there of making sure that you're handling difficult relationships in the workplace in the right way. And you're not handling it in a way that's destructive for you or for the company or for the employees or anything else. And if somebody is playing games, it's always best to wait till they get caught. When you start trying to trip them up, it could backfire on you, and you don't want that either. So that's what I have for you guys this week. And if you love your horoscopes, do click the link below and send me a copy. I would love that. And that's what I have for everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out and enjoying the horoscopes. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic, and I will see you guys next week. Make it a great week, everybody.